Welcome friends, topic of today's video is muscles of mastication. The muscles of mastication help in the movement of the mandible, which will help during the action of the mastication and speech. The muscles of mastication have been derived from the first pharyngeal arch, therefore they are supplied by the branches from the mandibular nerve. There are four muscles of mastication: temporalis, lateral pterygoid, medial pterygoid and the masseter muscle. We will deal with them one by one. So let us look into this diagram. This is the lateral view of the skull showing the orbit, the zygomatic arch. This fossa above the zygomatic arch is known as the temporal fossa, in which we will find the temporalis muscle and the temporal fascia. The space or fossa below the zygomatic arch, this area, is known as infratemporal fossa, in which you will find the other three muscles of mastication. This is the pterygomaxillary fissure. So this was the pterygomaxillary fissure. Inside this fissure, we will find the pterygopalatine fossa. This is the lateral pterygoid plate. This is the maxilla. This is the mandible, in which this is the condylar process of the mandible. This is the coronoid process of the mandible. This is the mandibular notch. This is the superior temporal line. This is the inferior temporal line. So now let us enlarge this picture over here. In this we can see this is the temporal fossa. This is the inferior temporal line. This is the superior temporal line. This is the condylar process of the mandible. This is the coronoid process of the mandible, the mandibular notch and the ramus of the mandible. Okay? In this diagram, we have removed this zygomatic arch. The temporalis muscle, which is a pan-shaped muscle, takes origin from whole of the temporal fossa, which is located just above the zygomatic arch, this space, including this inferior temporal line. Okay, and gets inserted into this coronoid process of the mandible. Let us draw the temporalis muscle here. So it takes origin from whole of the temporal fossa and passes deep to the zygomatic arch and get inserted to the coronoid process. Mainly the borders of the coronoid process, the anterior border, the posterior border, the deep surface of the coronoid process, as well as some part also get inserted into the anterior border of the ramus of the mandible. Okay? So these are the temporalis muscle fibers. Okay? So if we draw it here, the temporalis muscle takes origin from the temporal fossa and the inferior temporal line and passes deep to the zygomatic arch to get inserted into the coronoid process. Okay? So this is the origin and insertion of the temporalis muscle. Now some more details about the origin of the temporalis muscle, that is from the temporal fascia. If we take a coronal section of the skull passing through the coronoid process of the mandible, we will get this picture. In this we can see this is the temporal fossa, the zygomatic arch, the coronoid process of the mandible, the lateral pterygoid plate and the medial pterygoid plate. And this is the inside of the cranial cavity. Okay? From the superior temporal line here, that is this line, arises a fascia which is known as temporal fascia, which passes over this temporalis muscle to get attached to the upper border of the zygomatic arch. Before getting attached to the upper border of the zygomatic arch, it splits into two layers, a medial layer and a lateral layer. Both these layers get attached to the outer and the inner lip of the upper border of the zygomatic arch. This gap between the two layers of the temporal fascia contains some fat, a branch from the superficial temporal artery and a branch from the zygomatico-temporal nerve. Okay, so these three are the content of this small space between the two layers of the temporal fascia. Superiorly, this temporal fascia is continuous above with the aponeurosis of the skull, which is known as the epicranial aponeurosis. So this was the epicranial aponeurosis. And this was the temporal fascia. Okay, which was covering this temporalis muscle. As we already talked, how the temporalis muscle was taking origin from the temporal fossa, whole of the temporal fossa, including the inferior temporal line, and getting attached to the margins, that is anterior border and posterior border, as well as deep surface of the coronary process. This temporalis muscle also takes origin from the undersurface of this temporal fascia also, like this. So the temporalis muscle takes origin from two areas, that is the temporal fossa above the zygomatic arch as well as the temporal fascia to get attached to the coronary process. Now let us have a look onto the action of this temporalis muscle. By looking into this diagram, we can say these anterior fibers or the vertical fibers, when contract, will cause elevation of the mandible, and when these posterior fibers contract, it will cause retraction of the mandible, or we can say retraction of a protruded mandible. Okay, so these two are the actions of the temporalis muscle, that is the elevation of the mandible and the retraction of the protruded mandible. This temporalis muscle is supplied by deep temporal nerves. There are basically two deep temporal nerves, which are the branches from the anterior division of mandibular nerve. Okay, since this muscle has been derived from the first pharyngeal arch, therefore it was supplied by the mandibular nerve. Now the second muscle, that is the masseter muscle. The masseter muscle is quadrilateral in shape and can be divided into three layers: the superficial layer, the middle layer and the deep layer. The deep and the middle layer are vertically arranged and the superficial layer is arranged at an angle of 45 degrees with the horizontal. First we will draw the deep layer. Again, if we draw this part of the lateral view of the skull here and enlarge it, we can see the zygomatic arch, the lower border, the upper border, the orbit, the maxilla, the coronal process of the mandible, the condylar process of the mandible. The deeper layer of the masseter muscle arises from the deep surface of this zygomatic arch, from this area. We are showing in dotted because it is arising from the deep under surface of this zygomatic arch and get inserted into this coronary process, lateral surface of the coronary process and the upper part of the ramus of the mandible. So if you draw it, the deeper layer arises from the under surface of the zygomatic arch and passes vertically downwards to get attached to the coronary process, lateral surface and the upper part of the lateral surface of the ramus of the mandible. So this is the deeper layer of the masseter muscle. Now the middle layer. The middle layer arises from the deep surface of the anterior two-thirds of the zygomatic arch, this area, deep surface, and from the posterior one-third of the lower border of the zygomatic arch. So from this area also. So it has two origins, the anterior two-third of the deep surface of the zygomatic arch and the posterior one-third lower border of the zygomatic arch. The fibers of the middle layer also passes vertically downwards to get attached to the middle part of the lateral surface of the ramus of the mandible. So this is the middle layer of the masseter muscle. Now the superficial part. The superficial part of the masseter muscle arises from the anterior two-third of the lower border of the zygomatic arch. So from this region, anterior two-third, lower border, and some part from the adjoining area of a process of the maxilla, that is the zygomatic process of the maxilla, from this region. Okay, so these two were the origin of the superficial part of masseter muscle. The fibers of the superficial part passes at an angle of 45 degree and goes downwards and backwards to get attached to this lower part of the lateral surface of the ramus of the mandible. So if you draw it here, it is going downwards and backwards at an angle of 45 degree to get attached to the lower part of the ramus of the mandible. So this is the superficial part. Okay, so we have seen the three layers of the masseter muscle: the deep layer, the middle layer, and the superficial layer. Now the action of the masseter muscle. The fibers of the masseter muscle, especially the deep layer and the middle layer, which are vertically arranged, their contraction will cause elevation of the mandible, and the fibers of the superficial layer, which are arranged at an angle of 45 degree, will also help in the protrusion of the mandible due to the oblique arrangement of the superficial part of the masseter muscle. Now the nerve supply. The masseter muscle is supplied by the masseteric nerve, which is the branch from the anterior division of the mandibular nerve. Since this masseteric muscle has originated from the first pharyngeal arch, therefore it was supplied by the branch from the mandibular nerve. Now the third muscle, that is the lateral pterygoid muscle. The lateral pterygoid muscle arises by two heads, the upper head and the lower head. Now let us again see this lateral view of the skull. If we remove this zygomatic arch and enlarge the lateral view of the skull in this diagram, we can see this was the condyle process of the mandible forming the temporomandibular joint with the mandibular fossa. This is the articular disc and this is the capsule of the temporomandibular joint. Okay, this was the pterygomaxillary fissure. This pterygomaxillary fissure, and this was the lateral pterygoid plate. This lateral pterygoid plate. We have removed this coronary process of the mandible in this region. Here lies the greater wing of the sphenoid. So this becomes the infratemporal surface and the crest of the greater wing of the sphenoid. So this was the infratemporal crest and surface of the greater wing of the sphenoid. The upper head of the lateral pterygoid muscle arises from this infratemporal surface and crest of the greater wing of the sphenoid from this region and gets attached to the fossa in the anterior part of the neck of the mandible, which is known as the pterygoid fovea. Okay, So now let us join these two, origin and insertion. From this diagram we can see that the fibers of the upper head of the lateral pterygoid muscle will go downwards and backwards to get attached to the pterygoid fovea. So these were the fibers of the upper head of the lateral pterygoid muscle. Now the lower head. The lower head arises from the lateral surface of the lateral pterygoid plate from this area and gets attached again to the pterygoid fovea. So let us draw the lower head. We can see that the fibers of the lower head goes upwards and backwards to get attached to the pterygoid fovea. So these were the fibers of the lower head. Okay. Some fibers of the lateral pterygoid muscle also gets attached to the capsule of the temporomandibular joint, and through this capsule they also get attached to the articular disc of the temporomandibular joint. Due to this attachment of the fibers of the lateral pterygoid muscle with the articular disc of the temporomandibular joint, it has been said that the articular disc is basically a degenerated part of the fibers of the lateral pterygoid muscle. So this is very important fact. Now the action of the lateral pterygoid muscle. From this diagram we can say that both the upper and the lower head will cause protrusion of the mandible. Also, due to the direction of the lower head of the lateral pterygoid muscle, that is, it is going upwards and backwards, it will cause depression of the mandible, since the direction of the pull was downwards and forwards. So this downwards and forward will have two components, an anterior component and a downward component. This downward component will pull the mandible downwards and the anterior component will cause protrusion. So the lateral pterygoid muscle is the only muscle of mastication which will cause depression of the mandible. Okay, no other muscle of mastication will cause depression of the mandible. Now we will see what are the structures which are related with the lateral pterygoid muscle. First, the structures which are emerging from the upper border of the lateral pterygoid muscle. The first structure that is emerging from the upper border of the lateral pterygoid muscle are the two deep temporal nerves, which were the branch from the mandibular nerve, which was supplying the temporalis muscle. The second structure that is emerging from the upper border of the lateral pterygoid muscle is a nerve which is the masseteric nerve, which is the branch from the anterior division of the mandibular nerve. So this is the masseteric nerve, which will emerge from the upper border of the lateral pterygoid muscle and will supply the masseter muscle present in this region. Now, what are the structures which are emerging from the lower border of the lateral pterygoid muscle? The first structure is the lingual nerve, which is a branch from the posterior division of the mandibular nerve. So this was the lingual nerve. The second structure is again a nerve, that is the inferior alveolar nerve, which is again the branch of the posterior division of the mandibular nerve. The third structure, which is not basically emerging from the lower border, but it is passing deep to the lower border and going deep to this lateral pterygoid muscle, which is known as the middle meningeal artery. Which is a branch from the first part of the maxillary artery. Now, what are the structures which are passing through this gap between the lower head and the upper head? There are two structures which are passing through this gap. The first structure is the maxillary artery, which is passing through this gap and going into this pterygomaxillary fissure that is inside the pterygopraetorian fossa. So this artery was the maxillary artery. which is one of the terminal branches of the external carotid artery. Okay, and we can see that the medial mandibular artery rising from the maxillary artery. The second structure is the buccal branch of the mandibular nerve, which is passing through this gap. So this was the buccal branch of the mandibular nerve. Okay, so these are the structures which are related to the lateral pterygoid muscle. In this diagram, we can make the other branches of the maxillary artery also. So let us draw them also. So these were the deep temporal arteries, which is accompanying the deep temporal nerve. And this is the masseteric artery, which is now accompanying the masseteric nerve. This is the buccal artery, which is accompanying the buccal branch. And there will be some small pterygoid branches, which will supply the lateral pterygoid as well as the medial pterygoid muscle. Okay, so these four, that is the deep temporal arteries, the masseteric artery, the buccal artery, and the pterygoid branch are the branches from the second part of the maxillary artery, and the medial mandibular artery was the branch from the first part of the maxillary artery. Now the fourth muscle, that is the medial pterygoid muscle. The medial pterygoid muscle is quadrilateral in shape and arises by two heads, a superficial head and a deep head. To understand the medial pterygoid muscle, let us again see this lateral view of the skull. We are enlarging this part of the lateral view of the skull here, in which we can see the pterygomaxillary fissure, the lateral pterygoid plate. This was the condylar process of the mandible, and this dotted area that we are seeing here is the deeper surface or the medial surface of the ramus of the mandible, the angle of the mandible, and the body of the mandible, in which we can see the mandibular foramen and the mylohyoid groove. The deep head of the medial pterygoid muscle arises from the medial surface of the lateral pterygoid plate. That is, if this was the lateral surface, the medial surface would be at the back of this. So we will draw it as a dotted area and gets attached to the roughened area which is present on the medial surface of the angle of the mandible, below and behind the mandibular foramen and the mylohyoid groove, that is this area. So if you draw the deep head by joining these two areas, these would be the fibers of the deep head of the medial pterygoid muscle. Now let us draw the superficial head. The superficial head arises from a tuberosity which is present on the maxilla here in this region. We can see this tuberosity here also, here on the posterior surface of the maxilla is known as the maxillary tuberosity. So this was the maxillary tuberosity, this was the maxilla bone, and this is the molar tooth present in the maxilla bone. So the superficial head will arise from this tuberosity and will get attached to the same area, that is the roughened area present below and behind the mandibular foramen and the mylohyoid groove. So let us draw the superficial head. So the superficial head fibers are also going downwards and backwards. So the action of the medial pterygoid muscle would be elevation of the mandible as well as protrusion of the mandible. The nerve supply. The medial pterygoid muscle is supplied by a direct branch coming from the main trunk of the mandibular nerve, that is nerve to medial pterygoid. Okay, which is a branch from the main trunk of the mandibular nerve. And the lateral pterygoid muscle was supplied by the nerve to lateral pterygoid, which is a branch from the anterior division of the mandibular nerve. So the lateral pterygoid was supplied by the anterior division of the mandibular nerve. So we can see here that both the pterygoids are supplied by the mandibular nerve since they are derived from the first pharyngeal arch, and the nerve supply of the first pharyngeal arch is the mandibular nerve, which is the branch from the trigeminal nerve, that is the fifth cranial nerve. One point regarding the movements of the medial and the lateral pterygoid. The lateral pterygoid muscle of one side and the medial pterygoid muscle of the opposite side. When both of these muscles contract simultaneously, they will cause side to side movement, which is known as the grinding movement of the mandible. So this is another movement which is caused by the medial and the lateral pterygoid muscle. So this completes the muscle of the mastication. Thank you very much.